Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 21st. I apologize, first of all, for everybody, for us being a little bit behind. We had some training and ran over a little bit. And I just want to make sure that we can make sure we get everybody in with what they want to say today. This is Senate Agriculture. I usually go around and introduce everybody to the committee on a Tuesday morning, but let's just get right into it because we are behind, and we'll do that at another time. So we want to welcome Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance, and who wants to start off today?
We're not Kevin's friend.
Ms. Foster.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just kind of do a quick intro and kind of talk about VDPA. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Kevin Corey, work for Phoenix Feeds and Nutrition in New Haven, Vermont. My role within Phoenix is Director of Nutrition and Sales. I reside in Chittenden County. Have a BS from the University of Vermont Animal Science. I hold a master's in dairy nutrition from the University of Connecticut. Recognized as a professional animal scientist under the American Registry of Professional Animal Scientists. Currently serve on the executive board of the Northeast Agribusiness and Feed Alliance, which is kind of a broad group between New York and Vermont and some other New England counterparts. Also serving on Vermont Dairy Producers Association as well. I've advised dairy producers regionally, internationally since 2003. Returned to Vermont from Connecticut to start my professional career in May of '03. Current role takes me to all corners of the state, serving dairy producers, along with visiting surrounding states as we border, as well as visiting with other producers in New England and New York, advising them on the best nutrition practices for their dairy cattle and their farm. Phoenix Feeds, just to kind of give you some background on Phoenix, we serve all of New England, parts of New York, out of our New Haven, Vermont facility. We have a milling site in New Haven, as I stated, Brandon, Vermont, which is just south of Middlebury, as some of you may know. And in February of 2003, we acquired a milling site in Augusta, Maine, as well, as we continue to expand our operations. Currently in Vermont, we employ 65 employees in Vermont, another 20 in Maine. And Phoenix, the ownership of Phoenix is transitioning into an ESOP, employee-owned stock ownership. We are 27% into that transfer. So today I was really just here just to kind of be part of the team that's in front of you today, along with Walt behind me, really just to kind of discuss our hopes, this legislative session, and really hopefully maybe just more have a discussion around what VDPA does within the state. My role, which maybe be different than Walt or Shannon to my right, is that I'm on the industry side of the table. So collectively, we're just not a group of dairy producers. We also represent, obviously, ag interest. Another colleague or another member, Brian Carpenter, is also in agribusiness as well. Yeah. So the vitality of our 65 employees and the business that we run out of New Haven heavily depends on, obviously, the vitality of the dairy industry within the state. We primarily serve dairy, but we also serve some other sectors within the state, some beef, some poultry, some hog. But again, when it comes to the state, dairy still is king. Yeah. I worked last year on this committee for the first time, coming to Montpelier, visiting with the House. I don't believe I had a chance to walk into this room, but I was upstairs a number of times working there. And I think we've put a really nice kind of touch points in terms of what we feel is important within the state dairy. I'll just hit on the bullet points. I'm not going to go into them. Fiscal responsibility, I think, is very important. I was having a conversation before we started with Shannon Hill regarding that. Climate, obviously, environmental regulations that impact, obviously, our dairies within the state. Ag workforce, and I'm just going to leave that as a big, general, broad term. And access to food, and then there's a piece here that we're talking about energy, and that energy piece kind of has a couple prongs on it. It could be anything from battery powered to what some farms may have with either solar or digesters running on their dairies. I think on the industry side of it, speaking from the table that I sit across every day, we're very concerned long-term about power generation in the sense of moving to electrification in our bigger trucks that we have on the road every day. And how are we going to potentially service our industries and service dairies like Walt behind me or Shannon as we are faced with that coming down the road. So I'm going to pause there and really would appreciate any questions or comments, and I would would like to kind of more have a discussion around those priorities or how I see the industry today within Vermont.
Well,
thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for making it into this room this year. Glad to have you. We have a brand new committee, except for Brian, who's been here for 27 years. And but we made a commitment at our first meeting that as new as what we were, I have some dairy background and some don't, but that's okay. Because the commitment that we made was going to be that this committee was going to do what was best for the ag business in the state of Vermont and be no politics. And so there isn't a detail that's too small or too large for to be discussed if it's going to impact anybody, whether it's, again, yes, dairy is the king, but of anybody who, as I think Senator Major might have said, anybody who gets their hands into the ground and gets them dirty, we want to be that committee that helps them be able to continue to do that. So
thank you.
We are on an agriculture committee. There's, again, nothing too big or nothing too small. If it's going to impact you negatively or positively, we need to know about it, and we promise to work hard for your industry. So any committee, anything else as far as any of that? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So welcome in, Kevin. Your top note here that the session just concluded was a setback for agriculture and dairy. Can you just give us a few examples of why that was true? I think I know, but I'm curious.
On the fiscal side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were really. I was driving down this morning from Burlington. I was thinking about. And actually yesterday I was in New Hampshire thinking about going as far back as the Dairy Compact. I was driving around and I'm thinking about what that was to this state, what it was to the region, and thinking about how do we collectively stay viable. And I mean that from a pay price back to the dairy, and I mean that from a cash flow standpoint on our end. And when I think about that last session and kind of where I was, and again, I spent a lot of time upstairs in the House committee and never came down here, was really thinking about the fact that we're still talking about those same issues. And that comes right back to that milk price piece, which is stated here. It also comes back to how do we attract a potential workforce. And it doesn't have to be an immigrant workforce. It could just be Vermonters, that are going to, fill those gaps. And really what I took out of those meetings last year in 2024, so not really pointing fingers at anyone today, is that there was no collective effort moving forward. We continued to get pushback. We continue to be put things thrown in the faces of not only myself as a supplier, but also working with those dairies and realizing that they're going to have to take the money out of their pockets to put in a management practice that is going to come down from the State House that really is going to have tremendous impact on that viability. We can't change the milk price, but what we can do is how collectively can we maybe support all these issues together? And I don't get a sense of that at all when I walk out of that building last year. Every time I came out of here, was very frustrated with what I felt was always a no, or we can't do it. And so those were the two pieces that Brian Carpenter highlighted in this document as he sat down and put this together, which was a collective effort amongst the entire committee. But those are the two that really ultimately rise to the top. We talk about that piece about affordable living in our meetings. We need more employees in our facility. The issue is affordability of living, even in Aston County, Vermont. And how do we even work around that piece? And then you start thinking about on the dairy side of it, that need on their housing piece too. So, two pieces that kind of came out of it. But then how are we going to keep the existing dairies in Vermont and let them compete against a neighbor like New York? And I'm going to probably talk a lot about New York if I'm in here, because that's where the milk flows every day for the most part. And we're competing against a state that really has a lot of support from Albany. Not only that, but also from the university system and the extension program. And I think we failed. We failed there. Sorry. Senator.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I wanted to.
Yeah, I'll pause.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Cullen, thank you for asking that question. I think it's important that you come back, and that we expound. I mean, we have a short amount of time.
Yes,
I apologize for that. In order for us to help, to get to the point where we're feeling comfortable, we have to find some solutions.
Yeah.
As the chair pointed out, I am a neophyte in this, so I'm in a learning curve. And so not only the problems, but the solutions that you find, we may not be able to get to all of them.
Sure.
But I think it's important that from your vantage point, which you see as some of the solutions. The other thing is that you said something and touched on something. Obviously, competition of neighboring states is important, and how Albany is supporting their dairy farmers is important. So I'm curious as to what they're doing as well to figure that out.
I just speak on that. I know we're sensitive for time. It was our hopes with Emma and kind of the lobbying side of it. There was a partnership that was made 2 years ago now between Northeast Ag Feed Alliance, which represents all the Northeast, and VDPA, that there would be some cross communication in the hopes that we could tap into what Cornell has done. We can tap into what Pro Dairy has done, which is a leg of Cornell's extension program. Tap into NEDPA in the sense of that when we are looking to bring experts in front of you, that maybe if we can bring them through the door, that we can have some input, collectively sharing that information in the hopes that we can maybe drive some things. Because what we tend to see in the state is that our producers are leaving the state and going to New York for that expertise. So can we bring that expertise back into Montpelier? And that was the collective effort when Northeast Ag Feed Alliance made a financial commitment to VDPA in hopes to lift up and support collectively.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you, Senator.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Workforce. You know, did they reach out to like high schools and that for, got to be 16 or older to work at your facility, probably, right?
Yeah.
And do they ever, used to be the football team from Middlebury would go to Agway when they were a food store, and the young guys would work there. Did they promote any of that anymore?
So we've done some stuff with the Hannaford Career Center. That has been kind of a funnel to bring in, some students that are in Addison County going through that Hannaford Career Center that aren't going to go that traditional route, right? We don't all have to go to college, right? I mean, I have 2 children. I tell them that. Yes, my wife's a doctor. I have some graduate degrees, but, you can turn a wrench and you can make a lot of money today, right? So.
You did, as parents, set a high bar though.
Yeah, okay. So what our challenge there, and it's funny you brought that up, Senator, is the pushback we're now getting from the insurance companies.
Yeah.
Having these young people in our facilities, not that they're running around wild and they're not supervised, but and we're struggling with that on people that go through CDL driving school, and our insurance companies are saying, well, you can't put that 18-year-old, 20-year-old behind the wheel of a 100,000-pound truck going down the road. It's a missile. Okay, in some sense, yes, but how do we get some of this youth into? It could be ag, it could be any other trade. I don't need to speak to ag today. We can just say in general. So there's a lot of layers there, and I hear that from other companies that it's not that we maybe don't have applicants that want to learn the business, learn milling, be working in our shops, is that we're being told the insurance companies are not going to allow them in that building due to their age.
I want to take a minute and I
Yeah.
want to get up on the screen. Walt Gladstone, how are you today? Whoop, you're muted, sir.
I'm good. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you folks today. Would you like me to roll for a minute and share with you?
I'd like to hear what you could add to this, sir.
Okay. Well, I wasn't going to share a few details that I'll play off from Kevin a little bit just because of size and scale. I farm here in Fairleigh, Vermont on the Fairleigh Bradford line with my wife and two sons. We have 3 sons. 2 of them are in business with us. I can remember how long I've been farming here because my oldest son is 36. He was in his mother's belly when we bought the farm at auction. Go back a little bit, and my youngest son, Matt, is 32. They're both married and they both have a young family. Just to go backwards just for a second, I grew up on a farm in upstate New York, and that's kind of how we got our farm, Newmont Farm, the New York boy that came over here and married the Vermont girl. And I grew up on a dairy of 34 cows. I'm 63. A third of my life, I milked with my dad, milking 34 cows. Today, we are milking on 2 sites that are our home farm. We're milking 1,800 cows. And most recently, we bought our neighbor's farm, Paul Knox, where we're milking another 500 cows. So we're milking 2,300 cows. We have 300 dry cows, and we house 1,600 head of heifers. To feed those animals here in the Connecticut River Valley, we're cropping about 2,300 acres of corn, 100 acres for grass haylage, and we also grow 300 acres of wholesale pumpkins. Those pumpkins we wholesale throughout New England and New York State. On our dairy, we have 40 plus employees year round. And for the pumpkin harvest, we will hire in approximately 20 additional men and women under the H2B program to help us with our fall harvest. I guess I'm not going to be repetitive to the main bullet items that Kevin has talked to. I'll just share a couple thoughts to those bullet items. When we talk about fiscal responsibility, one of the things that I find interesting in all the years I've been here, when I first moved to Vermont, Madeline Kunin was in the governor. And during that time frame, I think one of the most best long-term solutions to help dairy farmers or farmers was how she dealt with taxes on our farmsteads. And the fact that now we have this large operation with all these facilities, our taxes are at a much lower rate. So it was something that was long-term. It wasn't just, oh, let's just pop it in there for the moment and it works. That was huge. I think that you guys have talked a little bit this morning about competition, and Kevin referred to New York State tax incentives. I think where and if you can, New York State, for example, right now has a 20% investment tax credit. So, for example, the other day, my son and I were looking at a herd of cows here in New York State. It's very difficult to find cows right now. The dairy industry and replacements, it's very short. There's not a lot of animals out there, and the cows are at an all-time high. Guy was asking $3,600 per cow, and we would be competing against our fellow farmers in New York State, where they would get a 20% tax credit. So, to the point of, over $700 or $800, how are we going to compete in buying that herd of cows when the guys across the lake can have it? And when I say a tax credit, it's not one of those where it's against your taxes. It literally, they write a check for 20%. So on $1 million barn, it's $200,000. So it's very meaningful and impactful. I don't know if this falls in this category, but I'll just speak to it. When we talk about fiscal responsibility and different laws that will affect us, this new bill about the neonics, when we talk about fiscal responsibility and how it's going to affect our bottom lines, and the most important crop that I grow on our farm for our dairy cattle is corn silage. It is king. And it's about 70% of the feed dry matter that I'm feeding those cows in these barns. And I'm telling you guys, when you think about the big decisions that we make that will last a year, when I grow that crop of corn, it's going to feed for about 15 to 18 months. That decision of real good or real bad. And I was at a meeting the other day where there was a speaker, and he was talking about digestibility and high milk production and all these things. Hybrid selection is huge. And so if we lose this ability to have these corn hybrids readily available to us, it'll have a huge impact. Climate change and such, I think the farmers are working hard to do practices with cover crops, buffer strips. I would strongly encourage you to help that where you can have money to help with those programs. I guess at this point, I guess the only other thing is, and I was going to say, you talk about increased food access and like that, advocating for more processing in the state where it can. We're blessed that we have Cabot cheese here in the state Agrimark with two major plants, one in Middlebury, one in Cabot, and when and if there's different incentives to promote growth, which will help the economics in the state and help with jobs. I guess I'll let you guys ask me questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gladstone? Yes, go ahead.
On the seed for the corn, you were talking about the Nicotoids. Is that basically where you're driving that question?
Yes.
And my question, and I think we addressed this once before, your pumpkin seeds also have them Nicotoids on them, correct or not?
That's correct. And it's just, I just tell you, it's flat out, if we don't have that trace of that neonic on that seed, we will have to spray more often. And in fact, we will actually do more harm to the bees than what they're suggesting is happening now. I just can't believe we went down this path and gotten too far. I don't know if they're going to show later today or not, but when you get a chance this fall, I was sitting out in my fields marketing pumpkins in a 100-acre meadow where there was 100 acres of corn across the river and 300 behind me. And we had the most active bees, and I had the beekeeper come out and we shot a video. And from a commercial side, the larger commercial growers or bee guys in the state are not, no pun intended, calling foul play on using neonics. So how did we get to this? There's definitely, it's hard to manage these hives. Mites are probably the biggest problem. And then you got climate change. And the other big thing, just like us guys on these dairy farms, success or lack there oftentimes is greatly a function of management. And the guys that are managing the hives better have stronger hives.
I think one of the topics that I was talking about when we were on a political committee, had we been a committee last year, maybe that wouldn't have happened. And but that's a big mouthful. So we'll see what we can do about that, Mr. Gladstone.
Thank you.
I want to go now to Amanda St. Pierre. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today. I'm excited to hear the things I'm hearing and excited to turn the page into a new year. So just as an introduction, my name is Amanda St. Pierre, and I'm here today to represent the Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance, as well as my dairy farm in Berkshire, where I farm with my husband. We began in 1986. Many years ago, and we were farming on a 40-cow tie stall for many years until we became what we'll call progressive. Today, in 2024, we're transitioning our dairy to the next generation. My sons are 30 and 28, and with their wives, Megan and Ellie, we are excited for the future as my husband and I kind of supposedly slow down and semi-retire, which as a dairy farmer, you never really retire. You just have such a passion for the industry that you just want to keep going. But now we'll look to our sons to tell us, what we should be doing. But it's been a process, and we're very excited to be able to have a future in our town and in our county and our state. Lifelong generational farmers. My parents were farmers in Vermont. I'm 8th generation Vermonter, I believe. My sister does all the historical ancestry, but pretty proud of that. But today, I guess I just wanted to focus and not try to repeat some of the great things that Walt and Kevin have said, and Shannon is going to go and really kind of summarize. But I just wanted to touch upon a few things that maybe new people to the industry or into this committee may not be aware of. Today's dairy farmer, we're progressive and conventional. We believe that there's one industry which combines organic and conventional. We don't like being separated. We don't like being, in any kind of regulatory matter or policy kind of being set aside from each other. We feel like that doesn't benefit the industry. So today I'll talk as a progressive dairy farmer. We're doing a lot more with less. We have developed over the many years through technology and advancement how to produce more milk with less cows, how we can, manage our fields and crops with a lot of regenerative practices that keep our soils healthy. It's something that we've worked hard on, we're very proud of, but I think is still very much misunderstood in some of the discussions around policy and regulatory work. And even some, fractions of Vermont and in the state, they don't understand how well we're doing, how much we do, how much we care about our environment, our lands, soils, water, and air. We are also very diversified on our dairy. I'll speak to it. We're heavily invested in the maple industry. We have built a new sugar house 3 years ago. My sons have independent sugar bushes, and then we have family sugar bushes. We combine all that, and it's a very big part of our overall family business. We've invested into renewable energy. We're one of the farms in the state that has a renewable methane digester. We're very excited that we are now converting it to making natural gas. We'll be online in 2025. We are working with a great developer who is investing upwards of $20 million in our state to get this to happen. And that is a big investment in our little town in Berkshire, which is in between, if you don't know, Enosburg and Richford, and it's right on the border. And that is an exciting part of our diversity. We started our digester in 2006. And as part of the transition, we were looking for the next step of that. We also work in construction. My husband and I, as part of our retirement, do build and sell homes, a couple homes every year. And we are looking into the housing crisis Vermont currently has, and excited to see what potential we may to do to maybe build more affordable housing in parts of the county, which it's needed, and excited that that's a goal of the state of Vermont, so we can work on some of those things. We have a lot of sustainable goals. We are very intensive on, our carbon footprint these days and how we play into the whole discussion. We are looking at how we can participate in some of the new markets, and, based on our land and, land as in open working land and our forest management practices, I think you'll see that Vermont dairy farmers score really high on our advancement in these areas compared to other parts of the country. And this plays into something I think you'll hear a lot about when we talk about right to farm in your committee, and how much our activities have changed since it was first created, and that it needs a little bit of a, structuring and regeneration, renovation, if you will, based on that our practices have become so advanced. I think I just want to say that being an economic driver is really important to us as a dairy industry. Back in 2020, it stated that Vermont dairy industry was a $2.2 billion industry, but I think that's very outdated. In the last 4 years, I think you'd see the number has grown, even though according to UVM Extension, they did a dairy data report that we have gone from 850 farms to down to around 440. That scares me, and I think it should scare you as well. It is not only a loss of who Vermont is as a state, but it's an area that needs protection. And we need protection in some of the work that you guys do in committee, and that's been already stated in the years past, that sometimes these policies are created in a silo and not really looking at the environment in which they'll be placed. So it makes us at a competitive disadvantage to other states that really welcome dairy and promote dairy and invest in dairy. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. We talk a lot about dairy. We've been in the State House for many years, but we're excited to think that there might be more of a conversation, a collaboration, if you will, to develop practical policies and influence that can not only protect, but bolster and encourage our next generations to stay here. And we have a lot of exciting ideas that we'll be happy to share with you in the weeks ahead. I think I just want to close on that aspect, but open to many questions. I guess our need today from your committee is to hear us, to help us and support us. We want Vermont to have a vibrant agriculture sector, and the decisions you make our dairy businesses affect our dairy businesses the very most. We want to feel like we're a part of the process before legislative and regulatory rulemaking that will lead to an informed decision. We need to be curious, and we want you to be curious about dairy farming, what we do, how we affect our towns, our counties, and state. Currently in our dairy farm, we employ anywhere up to from 70 to 100 people, depending on the season. And again, we're in a very impoverished area, and it's something that we're very proud to do, is invest in our community. We need recognition that our industry has changed extensively over the years with advancements in technology, efficiency in the marketplace, regenerative farming practices based on scientific field-based research, some of what Walt touched upon, and our economic contribution to the Vermont economy. By supporting us, you are protecting the Vermont landscape, which is important to all Vermonters and visitors to Vermont. I thank you for your time and look forward to talking to you more at later opportunities, and open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it very much. Questions? Thank you, Amanda, very much. Appreciate it very, very much. We're going to move on, and do we have Shannon? Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm not even sit here, but, I guess I'm new to my role as the
Just
new
tell
executive.
Jen, just identify who you are.
I'm Shannon Hill. We own Fort Hills Farm. My family owns Fort Hills Farm in Bristol, Vermont. We
Yeah.
are currently at one location milking 2,500. We've recently purchased a second farm that they're milking 100 cows at. We crop, I won't give you details, but around 6,000 acres. Again, we go back to the corn because that's about 2,500 acres of what we do. So, we're a big player in that area. We have, year round, we have between 40 and 45 employees all year round. And I like to call it my old parts club in the summertime that like to do nothing but drive truck and tractor. So, that to pick up the crops. So that's sort of, my role and where I am. I did not grow up on a dairy farm. Unlike some people, I grew up in town, literally 2 miles from where the farm is now. So it was all new to me, and I did not get involved in the farm up until 2000. Where did we sign that contract? 2008, we signed our first contract. That was to install the digester. We also have a methane digester on site that currently makes power. We are also considering switching over to converting that methane to natural gas.
Yep.
In the future, we're a couple years behind where Amanda's family is on that. So that's where I am. I got most of my start with Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance early on during the RAPs, and was one of the original founding members of this group. And I think at that time, when we realized we really needed our voice being heard, because people were making decisions without talking to the players.
Yeah.
So it was important to be heard then. And I did step back for a few years, but I'm back being now the executive director, interim for the next year. So I'll probably see a lot of your faces more regularly. And that's really what I want to convey is we really appreciate you being here and taking the time to listen to us. There have been times in the past when we have not felt listened to. And so it's important to open that dialogue and talk about things, and to know what's coming up. If you're thinking about doing something, could you maybe, say, hey, this is what's come across here. We'd like to share it with you. What do you think? Because it's a lot easier to work collaboratively together as things come up rather than trying to work backwards. So I guess that's really all I have to say about that.
So an open question to all of you. Can Vermont by itself come up with a pricing strategy of milk a lot like what the dairy compact was years ago? Do you think there's a strategy working together that we could come up with a way to sustain the price away from the federal pricing and come up with a solution that's just unique to Vermont?
I'm looking at Walt.
The showstopper.
All right.
Don't everyone speak at once, guys. Well,
I'm gonna go ahead, Walt.
I'll just, the milk pricing system is so complicated that, I don't know if I know the answer to that, but I'll tell you what little I think I do know. I think we have to be very careful to think that we can figure out some pricing mechanism where we're all of a sudden, got to remember, come up with a price that pays the farmer good money. But that milk now has to go someplace, and they got to make it into cheese or butter or fluid. And if all of a sudden the price everyone has to pay to get that is so much higher than they can get from everyone else, in today's world, I believe it's roughly 1 day a week the milk in this country goes to export. So I don't have the answer for you. I wish I could give you an answer, but I think we have to be very careful that we don't come up with a plan that all of a sudden our milk costs so much more for the people that want to set up shop here and be part of it. On a side note to that, and I guess this comes out of, I assume out of the state coffer, so it's a separate deal. And I appreciate the question. And when I say this, I don't say it like, oh, woe us, poor us, but let's just call it for what it is. If you go to Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, all of those guys, those farmers are receiving anywhere from $2 to $4 more per hundredweight on the revenue side than we are. So talk about a competitive disadvantage. We have a huge competitive disadvantage on the revenue side as far as gross receipts from milk in this state. Amanda, help me out.
I'm just-
I'm sorry, Walter, can you repeat that stat that you just said one more time?
So in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, I don't know about Rhode Island, so I'm not going to speak to it, but they are receiving anywhere, as I understand it in today's current times, from $2 to as much as $4 per hundredweight. So it's huge. And in many cases, you know, depending on the year, it's not uncommon in recent years. If you look at Farm Credit and you look at the financial numbers, on average, us guys, we're lucky to net between $1 and $2 a hundredweight. $1 to $200 net. So,
And why is that? What's that coming from? What is that? Where's that money coming from?
thanks. Go ahead, Kevin.
That wall. If I may.
Yeah, please.
I testified in Augusta 2 years ago now. They do a cost production study. They don't do it every year. They do it every couple of years. And within that cost production study, they comes out of the general fund, and they also have a milk tax. So you as a consumer, what the percentage of that is, Senator Major, I could try to provide you with that answer at another time. But Walt is correct with Connecticut and Massachusetts, but I am intimate with Maine, seeing that we do have a business in Maine now. And it's general fund plus milk tax.
Amanda,
it's a tiered program in the sense of size.
Amanda, I want to throw something out there before you add to it. So what if we could do something like this? What if we could do like what a gas station does? A gas station does, they bring 10,000 gallons of fuel in, and all the taxes and everything, when that person writes the check, everybody's paid, and all of that, and the monies go where they're supposed to go. What about if we were to do that the same as far as on the wholesale level coming into the stores in Vermont? When the truck came in there, that we added 3 to 5% per package of anything that was sold as dairy or pretended to be dairy, and that when it rang up to the register, nobody knew the difference, other than the fact that I have floated this idea around to hundreds of people, and everybody says we would do whatever we could do. We would pay more if we could be assured that that money was going directly to farmers. What if we could come up with that system so that every package of dairy or anything that acted like dairy that rang through the registers in the state of Vermont had a 3 to 5 cent surtax on that, and that we figured out a way to distribute that money back to the farmers based on production or whatever. And we could do that. And I know we could. But you can't do that unless you get everybody to agree that we could do that. And so it's a big rabbit hole to go down through if it's something that's not even obtainable.
I appreciate that, Senator, and I guess we've floated some similar ideas around, and I would just say that I know that there was a lot of work in the last couple of years done by the Milk Task Force. I think Senator Starr was part of it, and there might be a lot of information there. And I guess couple things. One is 10% of the milk I think that we make stays maybe in the state, something around that number. I don't have the exact. I also would say that the federal order is going to be up for some changes, which is currently how we're priced. And I think we need to support that, and maybe a resolution coming from Vermont supporting the change, the higher, it's very complicated. It's a higher of that we're looking for. They had changed the way they were pricing it about, I don't know, 6 years ago at the last farm bill. So with the new administration, potentially there could be some traction on the new farm bill. I would also suggest that we bring Bill Rowell in to testify before your committee. Bill is very knowledgeable. He probably to me is the most knowledgeable one on dairy pricing in our state right now. And he would provide a lot of really great information around this particular subject. I would also say that I think a way of looking at how to affect Vermont dairy farmers in pricing and getting more net back to our farm is in the very work that you're going to be tasked to do. It's in the regulatory process. It's the neonic bill, where now we're going to spend X amount more to try to buy seeds that are not treated with neonics, of which they're not even making the seed yet. And it won't even fit the needs of our environment. It's that kind of stuff that will drive those dollars back to our dairies that will impact us quite a bit. But by all means, I think it's important that the committee understands where we're at in the pricing discussion on a federal level, but also look at the other states that do things to support their dairies. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so man, I couldn't agree more. We did a lot of at least exploration, it seemed, in the last couple bienniums about, and Walt's point is well taken. If we, in essence, put a premium on any sort of dairy product in Vermont, but we didn't get agreement from the other states, we're already behind the 8 ball to begin with, and that just, it didn't seem like it could ever work. So I guess we kind of gave up on that idea, but I had rather mixed feelings about the neonic bill last year. Originally, I opposed it. We fiddled with it enough that I think we gave farmers some options that allowed them to keep using that particular seed if they could convince the Secretary of Agriculture that they needed to. So in the end, we went to the floor and I reported the bill and it passed. And again, as I've mentioned in previous testimony here, on the floor, there was an amendment to change the effective date. We wanted to push it out, I think it was 2031, but it wound up being the same date as New York, 2029. And I don't know where the manufacturers are with that. We'll be the only second state, I think, that will do that, that will require, non-neonic treated seed to be sold. I don't know that they've even started thinking about how they're going to do that. So there's a lot in play here, and I'm a big fan of the dairy farms. So I'll do whatever I can to help support.
Emma. Just please identify yourself.
Emma Schuldeis, I represent BDPA. I know there's the neonics noise is probably very overwhelming and confusing for the new members. We did put together a video that Walt mentioned that might help you understand a little bit that I could play because we have a few minutes. It's about a 5-minute video I can play and put it on the screen.
I'm gonna probably have to step out to another meeting, so Vice Chair, would you take over?
Is it possible for you to send it to us?
Yes, it's already on your website. Linda put it on your.
Okay. Then let's, I think that's probably a better way for them. We can
If you have
follow up with questions.
Please let me know.
So without seeing the video, I guess I'm gonna say this. Can we get you back in here? Is there any more that you would wanna say right now that you didn't get a chance to say, if I could get you guys more time? Or is there more people that you wanna bring into this? Is there anything else of context that you could bring into us? And, or should we meet in maybe another 30 days? And maybe get some more things out there and see what's going on. What would work for all of you?
Well, we have a member who represents Fairmont Farm. He's a partner, and Fairmont Farm is very close. He couldn't make it today, but he's coming later this afternoon to the House Committee. He couldn't make both times work, which is very common on the dairy farms. He has been willing to show and do a field trip. The committee went last year, and he's going to invite the House Committee as well. It's really quite fascinating what Fairmont Farms is doing, and it's right in East Montpelier, so it's kind of the closest. They're running 4-H, they're running camps in the summer for kids, they have, Airbnbs, they've had to diversify, which might give the committee an understanding of the diversification that farmers have had to do, because they're not making any money on milk due to the federal price. So I think I would love to circle back with you guys on that, and anytime you need anything dairy related, I'm in the building every day, but it's easy for me to find people to come in and speak on certain topics. But we would love to get you out to a farm and do a field trip.
When it's warmer.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Bill. I know Bill.
When it's a lot warmer.
I know from Bill very well. Anything else before we leave? And I think we're gonna have some more conversations, and I'm gonna really put the offers out there that you folks know how to get hold of us, and that we really would like to. I know all of you. I mean, whether you know me or not, I know all of you. I know all of you. I've been in the business around, so. I know your stories, I know your struggles, I know that, but we need to hear more of that, and we need to know, again, I think, Amanda, you said it well, I think you all said it well in a different way, but you said it that, you want to be heard, and you want to be listened to, you want to be part of the process, you want solutions that help you, more than it would help anyone else, and, I think we're interested in doing that. So, anything else to add before we part ways today?
No, I
Thank you.
again appreciate everybody's time, and I do like the opportunity to come in again later on as certain bills come in front of you, because then we can be really clear on those particular bills. And I think there would be a great time, maybe, Emma, to task a day to bring some next generation farmers in. Shannon has them, I have them, the Jarvis. I mean, I can name off a lot of farms that have next generation, and we really want to get them included in the legislative process. I think you'll be impressed by their intelligence and their passion for what they do and their commitment to the state of Vermont. So I would like an opportunity to have a day, maybe we'll call it Next Gen Dairy Farmers or something, and get them in and get them involved.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
for coming in
Amanda.
today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.